Greetings, everybody, and welcome once more to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the sands of Athas? Yes, Dark Sun once again awaits us, and we're going to be learning about the First Sorcerer today. Are you ready to learn about the one that caused the doom of Athas, the bringer of its destructions, the destructor of the Green Age, bringer of the desert? Rajaat? Without this being, Athas would still be a green, lush plant. He brought its destruction. You ready to join me? I am your host and guide, Adventure. I'm going to open up a portal, a gateway to Athas, to the world of Dark Sun, where we can learn about Rajaat, his history, how he destroyed that world, and where he is now. Please do leave me a little tip before we go, though, making sure you're liking and subscribing over the YouTube things and letting me know your experience with Rajaat in the description below in the comments. I've opened the portal. The sands of Athas await us. We have arrived. So, where to begin? There are a number of books and sources which deal with Rajaat and his effects. Certainly speaking of the history of Athas, speaking of his champions, those that would become the sorcerer kings and queens, would be very important in dealing with him. But the main book I'm going to be using talks about him as his big self, his individual and his full history to a degree, and deals with some aspects of what goes on with him in the meta-narrative of 2nd edition. And that's beyond the Prism Pentat. So this is the one I'd recommend if you're going to get into some Rajaat-related things. But again, this deals with the fact that 2nd edition into 3rd edition had a meta-narrative that went on that was half reversed in 4th edition, kind of reversed, but not reversed, and it's kind of hard to tell where that meta-narrative stood because certain things still happened and other things were completely ignored, and it's a confusing mess. It's one of those reasons that more and more I've been diving into 4th edition, which I started without one of my main sources, and learning more about it, the more I regret it. So I'll have to do a video on the full thing at some point in time, but we'll kind of leave that as a differences between the two in the future. Rajaat. Who is this man? Now, this is not Rajaat. Neither of them are. But these are Rajaat in a way. The First Sorcerer, the Warbringer, he's a pirate. An ancient species from the distant past in Athas, who still remain to this day. They're mysterious. Where they exactly came from is unknown. These are pirates. They are scientists, they're druids, and basically they are trying to fight against defilers and sorcerer kings. They are preservers in a lot of ways, but not quite the same. It's very interesting because they are humanoid and they look something similar to a lot of the current humanoids that have there. They're kind of broad like dwarfs, pointed ears of elves, the eyes of humans or a giant, childlike faces of a halfling. And, you know, as a druid, they also take a lot of animal forms, so rarely are seen in these natural forms. And this is where we get to Rajaat. This is important for establishing this being as we know it, because unlike his fellow pirate, Rajaat was not angelic, was not straight-limbed. He was a twisted, ugly lump of a creature that caused disgust in his mere presence. He was something of a cursed being of his own kind. People would see him and react with disgust and hatred. And the thing is, he first appeared in history as a benevolent and wise counselor and conciliator, bringing peace where there was war, teaching ancient and powerful preserver magic to the people of the Green Age. Bountiful harvest, continual prosperity. But he's just horrific. He's like, oh yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, we won't go to war anymore. This mistreatment worked on him. This despising of him, hatred, rage, self-hatred came deeping in him until his mind became just as hideous as the rest of him. He despised the warring and stupidity of these young species of the Green Age, and began to believe the ancient halflings of the Blue Age were the true inheritors of Athas, its rightful masters. this gets into a little bit of the Blue Age, first Green Age, first Current Ages of Athas and the various things. Just to summarize it, it was an age of like halflings and some other species, the Blue Age. Apocalyptic thing happened. There were successor species that came in after there, including what would be the more modern halflings, humans, dwarves, all what we know of that came in as inheritors of there. So basically, he came to believe that those that were born of halflings during the rebirth were usurpers and pests, the current sets of humanoids. And they had to be eradicated from the world so that halflings may resume their stewardship of Athas. It's sort of like, the modern halflings, they're not doing great because, all these other people are being really assholes to them, and they would rise up to their old, ancestors' ways if I just murder everybody else. Let's do that. This seems like a great idea. Now, this is important to note. During this time period, before shit's hitting the fan, he in secret created 2 types of magic. Preserver magic and Defiler magic. Basically, Defiler magic, which fed on the life and energies of neurolife, flora, and fauna. Basically, it was a vile art for returning the world to the Blue Age. That's one of the reasons why he developed it. He basically wanted the Relusti, those are the ancient halflings' name, to come back. And, because basically some of the other races were there, but, he'd get rid of the impure ones. He'd keep the Thraikeen, too. They were around there during that time. That'll be fine. So, yeah. That's Rajaat in a form, fighting Sadria. Why is this important? It deals with what happens to him. So, he gathers 15 human champions, powerful beings that he basically made immortal. These 15 followers he assembled, he taught the ways of defiling magic. He's like, hey guys, I'm your living master. I'm going to get you immortal, teach you all these things. I'm going to teach you how to combine psionics with defiling magic to get these very powerful things that you're godlike. You're my chosen. I need to go across Athas and start cleansing it of the lesser races. Good work. Please do that. You're getting rid of threats to humanity. Wink, wink. You don't see that wink. Basically, Rajaat wanted to use humans to eliminate everybody else and then get rid of them. Save for the halflings. And bring back the Blue Age. This is the Cleansing War. The creation of the Sorcerer Kings and Queens. Numerous demi-humans and non-humanoid races were attacked and destroyed. Many of them were either wiped out or reduced to so small numbers. The land itself was defiled through the indiscriminate use of the dark magic. Great terror, great strength, great powerful. And basically the champions approached finishing the job. They did. But then they discovered the truth. This wasn't for humanity. Rajaat wanted to bring back the world to halflings. Yeah, they realized that they were on the chopping block when everybody else was done. It's like, wait a second. Wait a second. Not us too. So yeah, they had to get rid of Rajaat. They had to stop Rajaat. And that's where the betrayal happened. Basically, they had assumed that Rajaat was human too, and just a horrible monstrosity because of, diving too deep to the sun or getting against something, the entire, as the creator of defiling magic, it defiled him kind of thing, that's why he's a horrible monstrosity that makes everybody nauseous by looking at him. He used to be human. But the thing is, turning against their master, they could rebel against him. But killing him off would be a terrible idea. He has so much knowledge, unparalleled knowledge of sorcery, they could probably use him, use his knowledge, use his help in certain things. So what was the best bet? Imprisonment. And that's where they came up with their plan. To imprison him in a place called the Hollow. A place that he'd be set away from the world. Now, to explain the Hollow just a little bit, it's kind of like a subplane in a nothingness that, is part of the gray, which again steps back away from the gray is basically like the plane of shadow of Athas. You have to think about that, or the Shadowfell. Basically, it's one of the two planes that touch Athas in its material plane. So that's the step back. So that's where they're imprisoning Rajaat at. The Black, a little sub area of the plane of shadow. Put you in there, in the Hollow. The Hollow, which is in the Black, which is the plane of shadow. There's nothing there. It was a place of nothingness. The Hollow is a hollow hole. Nothing at all. Emptiness. Can influence anything if there's nothing there. So they knew that this would be the end of their rule. And that's where we get the bringing back of the dragon. Boreos, dwarf killer. He basically uses the Dark Lens, a powerful artifact of Rajaat's, to ascend to being a true dragon. And imbuing himself with powerful ability. He basically starts to teach his fellow champions how to achieve draconic ascension themselves, and declaring themselves the Sorcerer Kings, the divine rulers that are answered only to the dragon himself, Boreos. The now successor to Rajaat, who was, again, his strongest warrior. It's a reason he took over for Rajaat when they all turned against him. So, that's when we get into the meta-narrative. Now, if we go by 4th edition, nothing else happened. But in the meta-narrative of 2nd edition and 3rd edition, Rajaat was there, kind of went a little crazy, eventually was almost freed before being sealed away with a combination of Rikos, the Mole, and the half-elven sorcerer, Sadria, basically being able to seal him back away. Also, I think the Dark Lens gets destroyed as part of that storyline. So there's an entire, meta-narrative of stuff that happens. And also the release of Rajaat results in, the disappearance of a number of Sorcerer Kings and Queens, the deaths of some other ones, a lot of destabilization in the region, which actually is delved into in 3rd and 3.5, that they actually continue the storyline years later. I think it's a couple decades later. So, again, we deal with the meta-narrative of that entire thing there to kind of empty out here, just to mention it. And 4th edition kind of doesn't talk about that part of the meta-narrative, so yeah. Which is just weird in a lot of ways. In some of their lore. We'll keep talking about it. But, yeah. There's Sadria in the middle there. I just wanted a picture of her because it's the closest thing. And a number of very other influential figures. Since we don't have any other art of actually Rajaat. I thought her, because, re-imprisoned him, is a good one to talk about to use as a picture. But, anyway. So, here's the thing. Rajaat is gone. In a lot of ways. He started out as very benevolent. Unfortunately, kind of went crazy. Kind of dived into defiling. His mind kind of collapsed. And then he got imprisoned. And his mind is gone now. Clawing at his walls of his prison, consumed by a desire to destroy the new races, return Athas to a blue age, get revenge on his betrayers. He is consumed by these things to such an extreme degree. He is a force of destruction and death as it is now. That is why him getting free is actually something we don't want. Because he is a nigh powerful, semi-divine being of immense power that is the master of both purification and defiling magic. That is the thing that you have to think about him. He experimented for centuries, meticulously crafted new spells, new divine healing arts. He basically invented what is known as preserver magic himself. Invented entirely brand new schools of magic. And then he created defiling. And he mastered both of those arts. And that's on top of him being a powerful psionicist, because he is a Pyrene, who are powerfully psionic naturally. Yes, he basically went into a entirely different direction than the druidic magic that his people are known for. But yes, he effectively does have enough power to create a new world, to burn the old into the half-remembered ashes of what he knows. That's the thing, is he doesn't remember enough of the old world to rebuild it, but he can certainly try, and he will burn down Athas, the world as we know it now, in order to do it. And he has the power to do that because he can defile so much of the land and then use massive, powerful preserver magic to bring back what he feels like is necessary after he's destroyed and murdered everything in his wake. Rajaat is a true threat to Athas. As much as the Sorcerer Kings and Queens are terrible and terrible for the planet, they are a candle to Rajaat. Rajaat was dangerous back when they were teaching him, but becoming insane in imprisonment has made it worse. And the Dark Lens is just one of the many powerful artifacts. Things like the Silencer of Bodak, the sword known as the Scourge of Rickard, are powerful weapons built by him, imposed with his own dark powers, oftentimes of defilement. And that's why Rajaat's an interesting character that isn't gone. When we talked about the dragon, we talked about he demands the sacrifice to help keep him in power because it is important. Because the dragon is constantly guarding against Rajaat getting free. And in the meta-narrative, when he did, it was awful. Now, if you're going by 4th edition stuff, I don't know if he got free or not. I don't think he did because, I think some of the Sorcerer Queens and Kings that were supposed to be dead aren't, and some other things that have happened didn't. But there's a lot of stuff that, I'll try to explore a bit of this meta-narrative that occurred in the adventures in one of my videos here, just so you know kind of where things are. Because I do like some of the pictures that 4th edition paints of Athas. I think it does a very interesting job of it. But there's a lot of stuff that developed in the meta-narrative, which I think is important. So it's that kind of place of both are actually good in a lot of ways. But Rajaat, getting back to him, he's an interesting character because people corrupted him. He was something great, something wonderful, something that was bringing life to the land, who was encouraging the Green Age to blossom, who understood the destruction of the Blue Age and its end and what had happened there. Now, granted, I think when he's talking about going back to the Blue Age, he's talking about before everything went to shit with that. It's like, we learned from our mistakes. We know how to make sure that doesn't happen again. We can go back to the Blue Age. It'll be great again. Green Age. But his actions perhaps doomed Athas. Look at what Athas has become. Rajaat is the cause of this. He chose violence. He chose genocide. Rajaat is the top of the villains chart, and his 15 warriors are just below there. Granted, there's a lot going on with them nowadays, but you can see his influence right down into them. But that'll be it for today. I hope you did enjoy diving into this. Make sure to check me out over the live on Twitch or over on YouTube. If you're live on Twitch, you can see me record videos like this. You can see live plays of games like Fall of Avanswell, Wednesdays at 8. You can see me doing discussion, podcasty, tabletop-y things where I do discuss at table. Saturdays at 6. Talk about news of the week, deeper discussion topics. But you can't join me live. You can always join me over on YouTube. That's where all the tabletop stuff. Now, over live, I sometimes do gaming, hang out with friends, just chatting, variety gaming, but variety streaming. But, can't catch that either. That's fine. Maybe I'll make a VOD channel eventually. But just the tabletop stuff over on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, or you can stop by YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to me, see all these videos, make sure you like the videos that you enjoy, and then, of course, make sure to let me know what you think of Rajaat here. And let me know what you think between the removal of meta-narrative from 4th edition, because I'm interested to have a discussion on that one. And I'll probably bring that up in more of these videos as we go. Maybe I'll do a video all about that meta-narrative at some point in time. I've been thinking about that. But let me know what you think about the kind of changes in this. And, would you use the Rajaat stuff and stuff like that? I guess that's the question today. What would you use of the Rajaat meta-narrative? What do you don't like about it? What do you think that works better in 4th edition with this? Let's come with questions here. And what do you think about this villain of all villains? Is he the true villain, or is he mostly a villain, but, he's kind of a tragic figure, but he's also kind of a villain? Let me know what you think. Anyway, check out my social medias. Until the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.